Welcome to Capital Conversations. I'm Marty Owings. It's Tuesday, March 11th, 2014. It's been a busy week and a half or 2 weeks up here at the Capitol since things got kicked off. Well, almost 3 weeks.
Yeah, into the third week.
Into the third week here. So I'm with Representative Paul Marquart. He's a DFLer and is joining us tonight to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been going on in this last 2 weeks. And as you walked up earlier tonight, you said it's been a very compact, busy schedule right from the get-go, huh?
It has, and nice to be with you tonight,
Yeah, thank you
Marty.
for coming on.
Well, it has. I mean, we're actually into March, which normally would be like the third month of a session.
That's right.
And it really seems like we've put about 3 weeks into about, 2 months worth into 3 weeks. So
yeah.
Things are moving quicker. You have folks and constituents that come down for Capitol for a day.
Right.
And I mean, the other day last week, you couldn't even use an elevator. I mean, it was that busy.
Yes.
It's great to see the people down, but everything where normally they would be coming down in January and February for the Capitol Day on the Hill, now it's all in March and trying to get all that done.
Well, you were saying there's some people trying to predict, a mid-April adjournment, but we've never seen that actually occur. You think it has any chance this year?
You know, I take the second year off because I still teach.
Right.
And there was 1 year, a couple years ago, where I said to the superintendent that I might be back at the beginning of April. And then, of course, we did the Viking Stadium. We went well into May.
Right.
And then I've heard people say, well, this year we could be done before the Easter break. I think it's going to be mid-May.
Yeah.
Mid-May.
Pretty much on time.
I think so. Just from the plans, the governor's budget plan,
Sure.
and the House will be releasing theirs soon, and just kind of what you've heard from
Yeah.
Senate Majority Leader Bach and the Senate, I think there's a ways to go yet.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit about what has been going on. Let's start with the $500 million tax cut that the House just passed last week. That's now been sent to the Senate. I understand they haven't taken action yet, but my sources tell me you guys that thing was fully loaded, ready to go. It's sitting on the Senate's table, ready for action. So tell me a little bit about this $500 million.
Yeah, well, we wanted to act on it fast because it is significant middle-class tax relief, and about 150 million of it is tax conformity. And that means right now people are filling out their income tax, which are due April 15th.
All right.
And the federal government passed a tax law last year, and they have all these new provisions. And if we don't conform to those, it means that as I'm filing my taxes, I get the benefit on the federal side, but then I have to add it back on the state side. Well, this now conforms things like the marriage penalty, mortgage interest deduction, child care, student loans.
Right.
And so that's almost probably about $150 million. The governor wanted that done by March 14th. Now that's only a few days, because of all these people filing their returns, because the department then has to get their software and get all that type of thing so they can get back out and get things for the tax preparers.
A month to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did it quickly, but it will provide significant tax relief. And then the other about 350 million of it was repealing 3 business-to-business taxes that were passed last year. The warehouse tax, farm service tax, some of the things with telecommunications and so forth. So it's a good thing to do, and I think it's a balanced plan as far as how to use the surplus. So hopefully we get things done and can get it to the governor's desk.
One of the Republican representatives, Greg Davids for Preston, he took exception with some of this and said, well, he kind of, I don't want to mischaracterize what he said, but he said the proposal is a repeal of there's a gift tax in there and some supplemental budget issues that he kind of disagreed with. Or what did he say?
Well, I can't remember exactly, but I think what I heard quite a bit from the other side was that these taxes should have never been done in the first place.
Right. They're essentially saying you're fixing your mistake.
Right, with this big surplus now. But you have to remember, last year when we were doing our budget, we were looking at a $600 million deficit. We still owed the schools $800 million. Right. And what we did then is not only solve that budget deficit, not only for this 2 years, but into the future. That's why we have a surplus into the future and not the deficit, because in the years past we'd try to do shifts and gimmicks and that type of thing. And so we did that. We were able to pay back the schools, and then we added almost $500 million to education all day, every day, K, froze tuition, property tax relief. First time we saw property tax relief actually cut in 12 years, significant. So now what we know is that we've got a $1.2 billion surplus. The economy is going very well. We can repeal some of those taxes. So, it's easy to say, okay, you have the surplus, but when we were doing the budget last year, we did not have a good situation, and we dealt with it in raising some revenue, filling the holes, but also investing in some really important things.
All right, let's talk about a subject near and dear to your heart, weed. I know you've smoked a little in your time. No, you never inhaled. No, I'm just teasing you, Paul. So I understand it's come up again this session, and there are, I think, Representative. Well, there's been some debate about whether or not the DFL wants to actually grab hold of that issue this session when so many other things are on the table, like bullying and minimum wage and stuff. You think that's got wheels, medical marijuana?
I don't.
You don't?
And the reason why is because Governor Dayton has said very clearly that unless law enforcement is on board, he will not support it.
Yeah, and then some of them seem to be okay, and the rest
well,
aren't.
and lately, Representative Moline, who's been carrying the bill,
Yep.
has worked a lot with law enforcement, and they still have huge concerns. And so I don't see it going anywhere.
Okay.
Personally, I'm on the side of law enforcement. I also have some big concerns as far as kind of the slippery slope. How do you manage that? How do you keep track of that?
Sure.
So I don't think law enforcement is going to be coming aboard. And I know Representative Moline has tried some different things and done some different language, but I just don't see it happening this year.
Okay. It did get some committee action so far up here, but okay. Well, it's interesting your take on that. So
yeah, it did go through one committee, and then I know Representative Moline had a hearing today, and she pulled the bill from that hearing.
I see.
That's what I heard. So
late breaking news.
Yeah.
Right
So I mean, I think it's just the fact that she has not been able to bring law enforcement on board.
And does it have other advocates here? I mean, among the DFLers or Republicans? Who are you hearing from?
Oh, it's a bipartisan issue, for and against.
Okay.
And I forget how many years ago it was, but it was when Steve Swingen was the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
It passed the House and the Senate, and then Governor Plenty vetoed it. Right. So I think if it actually got brought to a vote, it probably would pass.
Right.
But the governor has said that he would veto it unless you have the support of law enforcement.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about, well, I guess we'll just keep weed and alcohol together at the same time. Sunday liquor laws. That's something that people have talked about could actually happen this session, because I think that's something that the governor might actually sign off on, right? Because he said it's like, why can't you buy some beer on a Sunday?
Yeah. Well, Marty, you're right. He has said that if the bill came to him, he would support it. Okay. And that's now why things are going again. Why it's kind of bringing it up. My personal feelings, I've been opposed, as actually most people. I mean, there was an amendment right here on the House floor last year that only had 21 yes votes, I think 106 no votes. And one of the reasons is because the liquor store owners themselves come in and they say all this is going to do is spread 6 days of sales into 7, and I'm not going to have enough revenues to cover the overhead of having staff come in.
Yes, I've heard
Unlike
that.
a large, business that can do that. But I would say they're looking at potentially leaving up to a county option. That might be one proposal. So
you'd have dry counties on Sunday?
Exactly.
Sure.
And that's something I can look at. I mean, I'd be willing to look at that proposal.
Do you think that would split some kind of a vote out here, rural and urban, sort of split there in terms of, that's going to be in a lot of my counties, guys want to be dry? Or
it would create some interesting dynamics.
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't thought about it, and I just hasn't been. I don't know. But I do think with the governor saying that he would support something gives it some new legs. But I don't think just the same way it's gone back before. I don't think it's going to make it.
Fair enough. you're going to stick with your denial on the you never inhaled, though.
That's right.
All right, fair enough. So we got taxes, we got those issues, and then let's talk about some of the other big issues you're focused on. Minimum wage.
Yeah, and
What's going to happen there?
It's in conference committee right now.
What about Republicans who say that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
Republicans who say that's a mistake. That's an overreach by Democrats. You're going to hurt business.
We haven't raised the minimum wage since 2005, and inflation's gone up quite a bit by then. We're at 615, federal's at 725, and yet most are at the federal because of the amount of the sales. But here's what my thinking is strongly on this, is that this, I believe, not only will help improve quality of life, but folks who get the minimum wage many times put those dollars right back into the communities. Okay. And a lot of people say, well, this is just teenagers working at McDonald's. But the fact of the matter is that almost 80% of these folks who would benefit from a $9.50 minimum wage are 20 years of age or over, and 23% are the sole provider for their family.
Working more than one job.
Yeah, so this isn't just teenagers.
Right.
And there's one more point I have to make, and when you look at the stats, this comes out that no one in this great state who works 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, should be living in poverty. Yet, at our minimum wage, that's what happens. That shouldn't be. And I live along a border. I represent along a border, Clay County there, and I'm certainly very cognizant of
they can go over there for jobs.
Yes.
Right.
And I know I've been working with Representative Lean and Senator Eakin, who represents that area, in working with some things on border cities where maybe they could buy down some of those wage increases. So it is a concern really along the border areas. And I'm not saying it isn't a concern for businesses, but I think overall, and the data will prove, kind of studies have shown, that it ends up helping the economy. The last time minimum wage went up, Minnesota increased their employment and new jobs by about 1.5%.
Well, you're hearing from I think if you listen to the rhetoric around here, you'd think that Republicans don't have any poor people in their counties and Democrats don't have any businesses in their districts. You're hearing from your business constituents. What are they telling you?
They're concerned. Okay. And I've had a lot of conversation with businesses.
Okay.
And, again, I'm looking at the overall picture on things. I just think if you can improve the quality of life, increase the purchasing power for folks, they put that back into the economy. Sure. And remember Henry Ford. He paid his employees.
I wasn't around when he was around,
I should
but
say,
thank you for that.
Yes, well,
you got me back for the weed
history,
comment.
So I should
right
say
there.
I'm thinking about it.
That was it, right there.
But,
you got me.
He paid his workers a high wage so they could buy his cars.
His cars, right? Yeah.
And so, but I understand. I was a former mayor in Dilworth, and when it comes to businesses, it's not either or. I mean, business is huge to the economy, of course, and we've got to make sure that things are
table.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm, but I think overall in the balance, personally, I'd probably like to see it maybe at 850 with an inflation. Start a little lower and then put the inflation in there.
Yeah, I think Republicans are taking exception to some of the provisions and some of the proposals they've heard, like tying the minimum wage to inflation and the federal, rate, like with Social Security just goes up automatically.
Sure. Yeah. And
so they're saying, hey, well, you're just creating another entitlement program.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. I know the Senate's been opposed to the inflation.
Okay.
So, but I mean, personally, I'd like to actually see it start a little lower. I think, phase it in at a little lower.
So at 850 and then...
Yeah, at 850, but I think it's going to be probably 950, and I still think we need to do something. So I can't hold out for the perfect.
But you don't think it'll be tied to inflation?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't.
So in perpetuity, you won't see that going up. It'll just go to 950 and stay there for however many years till you guys take up the issue again?
That's right.
Yeah, that's not going to make your lobbyists over this issue very happy either.
It's the reality of what you can do politically, and again, the businesses have concerns, and along the borders concerns, and that's very legitimate.
Fair enough. Well, let's wrap up the program by talking about what is feasible politically up here when you're talking about an election year, because the whole House is up for re-election. Mm-hmm. You got, there'll be a governor's race. All this stuff's going on. We're going to see politics played out on a grand scale here pretty soon. as you guys try to gather what they call campaign literature moments. So what can you realistically do as a caucus, as a party of the DFL, without it being characterized as, look at what the DFL's overreaching with their social agenda?
Yeah.
So what's your caucus saying? I know.
What we're saying is just look at what happened last year. We really turned the state around financially, and invested in
might have
key
been
areas.
the state and some.
The
economy.
No. I'm talking
politically?
I'm talking though just dealing with the budget.
Yeah,
You're
okay,
right. I mean,
sure,
the surplus we have right now, it's the economy. It's our hardworking employees and employers that are making this work. But what I'm saying is, what we did last year actually puts things in the right direction. Instead of, probably the most important thing was, instead of doing the budget just with gimmicks and that, we passed it into the future. So we're not coming back behind the 8 ball, and invested in those things that lead to a good economy. So I think we'll stand on our record this year with the surplus. We've got a $500 million tax cut. We're going to put some in reserves. I think we're going to put some in areas of further property tax relief, education, higher education, infrastructure, nursing homes, that type of thing. And that's what we need to do. We made some great strides last year, but we had 10 years of disinvestments in education and other areas. So if that's politics, that's politics. But I think it's been good governance the last 2 years.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come up
you.
and visit with us, Representative Marquart. Always good to talk to you.
Appreciate that, Marty.
And we set the record straight that this week that you're clean. There's no weed in your history. But it was good. It was good. We covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate you coming up. And always good to talk to you. As I said. All right, that's it for Capital Conversations tonight, and we'll see you again next week. Good night, everyone.